Hey YouTubers. So one of my viewers requested me to do a video as a follow-up to another video that I did once before, and that's a review of the Craftsman double box end uh, wrench, and what the difference between this wrench and the offset wrenches is. Okay. And he was asking if he should get one or the other. So I'm just going to talk about a little bit of the applications of each of these. And sorry about being so zoomed in so close. I like to use my phone because it helps me upload it directly via an app. And this is the minimum zoom, and it's within arm's reach, so I like to keep it this way. But back to the wrenches. These wrenches I use more for heavy duty applications where a socket will not fit and socket and ratchet will not fit, and where a open-end wrench just is not going to have the torque to undo a bolt without spreading and slipping and rotting off your nut and busting your hands and everything else. Okay, so I use these for that. These wrenches are very, very, very heavy duty. This wrench itself weighs a few pounds, maybe 3 pounds, 4 pounds, and the set, I have a standard metric set. This is the biggest one from the standard set. It's 1 5/16, and then this is the biggest one from the metric set. Is 28 millimeters, 25 and 28 millimeters, and a lot of wrenches up to that point. Okay, so I was using it the other day, and here's the smallest one from the standard set. It's a 1/4 inch, and here's the biggest one from the smallest one from the metric set, a 6 millimeter. Okay, and they're also very long. In case you haven't noticed, they're much longer than your standard combination open-end box end wrench. Now, I was using this the other day, and I had an application taking a control arm from a car, and the only thing that would fit in there was a wrench, and I didn't have an open-end wrench or any other wrench that size. I certainly didn't have a ratcheting wrench that size. So I just took this and I just, patiently took it off, put it back on, turned it a little bit, and took it off. About 5 minutes later, I had the nut off, tired, exhausted, irritated, and it did the job though. Those control arm bushing bolts, those control arm bolts are on tight. A ratchet probably would have worked, but no room again. Now, an offset wrench is more of a finesse tool. I'll give you an application where you can use this and not the other one. Is an upper shock tower of a car. Okay, front shock absorber tower, the part that sticks up into the engine bay. Frequently, there's a nut that sticks up from the bottom, and then either there's a hole with the Allen key cut out of it, or a flat where you have to put a wrench on it. You have to hold the shock shaft from turning as you undo the mounting bolt that's holding the shock onto to the strut, or to the bearing assembly. Okay, upper bearing assembly. In that case, you need one of these because it's down inside the bearing mount, and you need to hold something on top. If you use the socket's going to block the top. You can't hold the flat. And if you use one of these wrenches, well, you can't get down inside the hole. So in that case, this is a very specific tool, and it'll only do the job for that. Now back to my shock tower, back to my control arm that I was doing the other day. I got real tired of doing that, so I went online and I bought one of these. Okay, well, or rather one of these. Metric is what I needed. It is a jumbo gear wrench, ratcheting wrench. With ratcheting wrenches, you have to be careful if you're taking off a bolt. As the bolt comes out, you might get stuck against another piece of equipment, and these don't have reversing on it, so you need to pay attention to what you're doing. Otherwise, you could get your ratchet, quote unquote, trapped. Okay, so be aware of that, and you have to cut your bolt off and do some other stuff. So be aware of your surroundings when you're working with one of these, backing out a bolt, that you don't trap yourself. So I went online and bought one of these. Standard metric set. I always buy everything standard metric. It's just something I do. Even though I deal mostly with metric, what I've noticed is most automotive applications nowadays are metric, and most nuts and bolts you find out in industry, play sets, refineries, whatever, are still SAE. 5/8, 7/8, 9/16, 3/4 inch, 1 5/8, 2 inch, 3 inch, whatever. So there's still a place and time for standard wrenches, but most automotive applications, I've noticed 99-100% of them almost are metric anymore. So another one that I've bought in the last few months, and maybe this is 6 months old, and I bought this based on the recommendation. I was watching another YouTube channel, Ratchets and Wrenches, and he had a set of these wrenches. These are spline drive. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of these, but these are spline drive. They kind of like 12-point more or less, and reversible, right, with a little tiny little reversing lever there. They got a little socket there. You can only put them in one way, I believe, or maybe you can put them in both ways. Yeah, you can put them in both ways. So if you want a flush application, stick it that way. If you need a little bit of a lip, you can do that. They swivel up and down. They're pretty tight. It's a hammered pin. It's a pinned-in pin, so there's not a screw to tighten. And the one thing that's amazing about these is that this 8mm wrench is better than a foot long. Okay, so you not only can you get deep inside spots and put them on there and work it out, and you have less of a chance of getting these trapped because they're reversible, so you can get them out if you get trapped. But these are made by a company called Mountain. They used to be made by Easy Red. To me, I think it's the exact same source from Taiwan that imports these, just by a different name now. And they're not cheap. Each set was, I think it was $125 for a set of 4 wrenches. So they're not cheap. I bought them because, well, I wanted to have them. Okay, I just wanted them, so I bought them. But you could certainly live without these. These are very nice, but you don't need them. They're very long, and if you haven't bought a set of ratcheting wrenches yet, maybe you want to start with these and then see if you like them. But again, I digress. If you have heavy-duty nuts and bolts that need to be broken and frozen, that are frozen in place, you need to be broken loose, these, okay? This is not a substitute for that. These are more of a finesse thing. They probably do the job, but I think they're not as, you know, the angle's off, and I don't think it's the right tool for taking out a frozen nut and bolt. Now, I do have a special guest. If you really do have a nut and bolt that's frozen, and your corners are rounded, and you are desperate, socket won't grab it, 12-point socket won't grab it, nothing will grab it, 6-point, okay? If you suspect, and when you put it on there and you suspect that the corners are kind of rough to begin with, and you still have some meat left on the nut, start with these. Go for these immediately. Craftsman used to make the set. I think they still do. It's they make them standard and metric. I bought them in one combined set with a lot of wrenches, from very small to very large, and these are great if you have special applications like brass nuts and bolts, copper hardware, the old air fitting stuff that used to be made of some kind of like leadish material. I don't think it was lead, but there's some very soft material they used to make air fittings out of back in the day I've come across. So you certainly want to start with these. And as usual, if you have a frozen nut and bolt, don't just go at it dry, guys. Spray some PP Blaster on it, let it sit for a little bit. Your life will be a lot easier. If you can tap it with a hammer a little bit, fine, heat it up, but don't. If you find that a nut and bolt is stuck, don't just go crazy on it with tools. Use a little common sense, use some finesse, use some PP Blaster on those things. Let it soak in, be patient. Above all things, be patient. Because once you round off a nut and bolt, or if you round off a bolt, worse, or worst of all, if you break the head off of some kind of bolt, you're really going to wish you hadn't done that. Okay, so always give it some heat, give it some time, don't rush, do things the right way the first time. But I hope this answers the question to my viewer, Berserk King, I think his name was, about these double-end box and wrenches. If you're on a budget and you need these, then buy these and see if you can use it for those applications, and if you can't, then go ahead and buy those. But one more thing about these is that this added depth may not always work in every application, first of all. So if you have a tight spot, this thing might start getting in the way. It's not a direct replacement for those double box and wrenches. So I hope this helps. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, and if you have requests for other videos, let me know. Thanks.